When you first started lifting weights, much like I did, you probably got the advice that 6 to 12 reps is the best rep range for building muscle, and that 12 to 20 was great for endurance. Of all places, I remember reading this on bodybuilding.com. Rip to the credibility of that website. Am I right? TLDR, we have come a long way in the research, and we now know that 25 reps can grow just as much muscle as 8. But doesn't necessarily mean you should. There's a lot that goes into this, so let's get into it. When designing the repetition range for your workout program, I think there are 3 things that we need to consider. 1 being obviously the rep range, and I use range really intentionally. 2 is how close to failure you should train, and 3 is how fast or slow should that repetition be to maximize hypertrophy. And I guess I should practice some sympathy. After all, I can see why it is such a prevailing myth that 12 to 20 reps is somehow for endurance. I mean, for heaven's sake, the American College of Sports Medicine still publishes in their literature that 8 to 12 reps is best for resistance training. Pretty easy to see where someone might get confused. I'm really grateful that we have amazing researchers that are willing to explore these topics, like our great Lord Brad Schoenfeld, who not only conducted a study on this topic, but also performed a meta-analysis to understand the overall trend in all the research that covers this topic. For those of you who may not know, any single study in about any given field ever can be very misleading. And in statistics, there is something called a meta-analysis, in which a group of researchers will bring together a group of different studies on one topic so that they can understand and extrapolate the overall trend. Now, not all meta-analyses are perfect, but hopefully by bringing so many different studies together, we can iron out some of the wrinkles. Of the 21 studies analyzed, there are 3 that I really want to key in on, from Morton, Au, and Schoenfeld. I want to focus on these 3 because unlike the other 18 studies, the participants in these 3 studies were trained individuals. I think that's important because oftentimes trained individuals just react and respond differently than someone that is fresh in the gym and has virgin gains. Oh, how we miss those virgin gains. Morton and Au are extremely similar studies, both comparing 8 to 12 reps to 20 to 25, with a pretty intense 4 times a week full body workout. Like seriously, this list, it's impressive. I'm not jealous of the guys that participated in this study. And Schoenfeld compared 8 to 12 to 25 to 35 over 8 weeks with 3 full body workouts per week. And accordingly, they measured the results using bod pod, DEXA, and ultrasound. Personally, I don't see how the bod pod would be super effective, but I'm not a researcher, they are. I'm gonna trust the results. As with the other 18 studies in the meta-analysis and the overall trend of the entire meta-analysis, these 3 studies show that those higher rep ranges increased muscle mass just as much as 8 to 12 reps. That is a massive freaking deal. That's insane. 25 to 35, what the? But now that we've established that those higher rep ranges can absolutely grow as much muscle as the lower rep ranges, it kind of raises the question, just because we can, does that mean we should? As with all things, I think unfortunately the answer is it depends. It depends whether it's a compound or isolation exercise, the actual muscle group being worked. There's a lot at play here. I almost never go above 20 reps. The reason for that being, at that point, you're bringing in just as much cardio as you are weightlifting. And honestly, after 20 reps for most exercises, I'm just so gassed from keeping really good form and breathing and lifting, somewhat of a heavy weight that I just can't focus on where I want to put my focus, which is growing freaking massive, dude. When training 20 reps and below, after I finish my set, the only thing I'm recovering from is the actual muscle fatigue. I'm not trying to catch my breath unless I'm squatting, jeez. And just overall, I feel like I have a better hypertrophic workout. In defense of those higher rep ranges though, I gotta say for the longest time, much like you probably, I was swayed to believe that anything over 12 was just for endurance endurance and not optimal. And I also love just lifting really, really heavy. So I always stayed between 8 and 10 reps. Now that I've incorporated more of these higher rep ranges into my workout, I feel that for certain body parts, like my biceps, I notice that I get a better pump, a better mind muscle connection. I obliterate my arms way quicker than I used to, and I actually feel it in my biceps. So I am really grateful that I'm starting to experiment and starting to throw in these higher rep ranges. I've also noticed that my quads get a massive stimulus. Oh, and it sucks, but that's what you gotta do. The advice I'd give here is that if you've restricted your reps for an extended period of time, start experimenting. Try those higher rep ranges with all your different body parts and find out where you feel it best. This is totally up to you to experiment and go learn how your body works. And of course, this does not have to be one or the other. If you have leg days on Tuesdays and Fridays, go heavy on Tuesday, sub 10 reps, and then on Friday, go between 15 and 20. Switch it around, experiment, see what works best for you. Hey guys, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to put in a quick note in hopes of being as intellectually honest as possible. As I am editing what I have recorded, I'm noticing that I have definitely left out a few key pieces to that meta-analysis. In the nerves of recording my first YouTube video have honestly just gone past me, such as it may be more important as a trained individual to lift heavier weights. But I am a classic perfectionist. I do not do things unless I think they are perfect, and that has kept me from taking action. So I wanted to be upfront and honest, but I'm gonna continue to post this video, and I will readdress this at a future date and make sure I fill in some of the gaps. Again, thank you so much for watching this far. I just wanted to be upfront and honest. Thank you. You guys, if you're still here, gosh, I'm so incredibly grateful for you. I would love it for you to like and subscribe. Let's get back into it. Now, onto the topic that I think I'll get a lot of flack for is training to failure. Now, this topic deserves a totally different video in which I will make, but in my opinion, and from the research I've read, training to absolute failure is just not necessary. In the previous analysis that I mentioned from Brad Schoenfeld, every single one of those 21 studies used momentary muscular failure as a way to measure complete sets. Can you imagine being in those studies? 30 set full body workout 4 times a week, and every set you're taking to failure. Talk about a living hell. But again, bringing the knowledge, our king, Brad Schoenfeld, Gergich, and colleagues conducted another meta-analysis, this time regarding training to failure with 15 different studies. I could not sum it up better than they could, and without diving too deep into the details, I am simply going to read their overall conclusion from their research. Training to muscular failure does not seem to be required for gains in strength and muscle size. However, training in this manner does not seem to have detrimental effects on these adaptations either. More studies should be conducted among older adults and highly trained individuals to improve the generalizability of these findings. To this point, we probably don't have enough research to definitively say whether training to failure is better than not. But as Brad and his colleagues point out in another part of this meta-analysis, this also should not be an either-or situation. Every study to date has shown training all the sets to failure or training none of the sets to failure. None have to this point studied whether maybe just training that last set to failure is beneficial over not. We just don't know. But what I would recommend is that you do save training to failure for the last 1, maybe 2 sets of a muscle group on one day. The reason being, hypothetically, if it's chest day and you've got bench press first, if you go to failure on that first set, you are screwed. You're absolutely screwed for the next set. Like, are you kidding me? Look me in the face and tell me that with a couple minutes rest, you're gonna come back and hit the same number of reps. No, you're gonna build up so much freaking fatigue. So I would recommend holding failure off to the last 1, maybe 2 sets of a muscle group on a given workout. And lastly, we have the tempo. The study of discovering what repetition tempo works best has studies going in every single freaking direction. There are so many that slow repetitions are better, that fast are better, that they're the exact same. It goes in all directions. With that being said, if you're asking for my personal opinion, I think from the research that I have read, and again, I've read it going in both directions, I personally believe that fast, explosive repetitions with a controlled eccentric are best. But then again, something to keep in mind about repetition tempo is that your actual speed of the repetition is going to be highly dictated by the weight that you're using. Heavier weight, you're just naturally gonna go slower. Lighter weight, you're naturally gonna go a little bit quicker. Do I ever intentionally slow down my concentrics? Absolutely not. I prefer those quick reps that allow me to really squeeze there at the top and a controlled eccentric on the way down. Nothing too fast, nothing too slow. That's just what works for me. And it seems like that may be how this plays out in the end, that we just all react differently to different repetition tempos. So experiment around and find out what's best for you. If you made it this far in the video, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for you to be here. I would love for you to like this video and to subscribe if you've gotten any value out of this. At the end of the day, train all the way up to 35 reps for all I care. If you're going to train to failure, save it for the last 1 or 2 sets for that muscle group and pick a tempo that works best for you. Until we have further research, I think at this point, that is the absolute best that I can recommend. Happy gains.